Welcome to Resourced and Resourceful Leadership, a podcast for people who care about the world and their impact in it. I'm Dr. Christine Pettit, and today I bring you a conversation with Eydie Pasicel, a friend, an active Long Beach community member, an astro coach, and an all-around rad human. In this episode, you'll learn more about Eydie and her work as a coach who pulls insights in from astrology, internal family systems, her training as a death doula, and more. She and we make a lot of interesting connections throughout the conversation, so I'm excited for you to hear it. Thank you so much for joining me today, Eydie. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you and for people to get to know you better and hear about the kind of magic that you're bringing into the world.
Hey, Christine. It is a joy to be here today with you.
Awesome. Well, I know as we were getting ready for this conversation, we were just talking about how we first got connected, and really it was through community work and our connections to Leadership Long Beach. Do you want to share anything about that?
Yeah, I remember you from one of my leadership Long Beach days. So I'm class of 2018, the courageous class, doing it afraid. That's like
Love
such a
that.
perfect name for me in particular, but our whole class loved it. And yeah, the day with you was very impactful. I learned so much about the city of Long Beach, particularly in the west side, and some of the impacts that the city was having. And just, yeah, it really landed in ways like just for me being in the nonprofit work, it's like I really want to make a difference and do things to make people's lives better. And I really loved the work that you were doing and how you were bringing so much attention to work that needed to be done. So thank you for doing all that work. I've always appreciated you since that day so much. And then I think I met you again coming together for a community member. And I was like, damn, this girl is always showing up for community. She's so cool.
Oh,
Mm,
thank you.
yeah.
No, I love those connections and just getting to know you more over the years too. And, seeing someone who shares a lot of values, I've appreciated that. And I'm excited for people to hear more about your journey and the work that you're doing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, can you share a little bit about the birth of Polaris Coaching and Consulting and your journey to coaching and through coaching and all of that so far?
Yeah, sure. I think really my whole life has set me up for this. Just coming into the world with a really challenging background. Like I have a very high ACE score. And then getting to really understand myself through studying human development at CSULB. And then I knew I just wanted to be of service. So getting into the nonprofit sector. And I got to work with survivors of violence for a really long time in that nonprofit leadership space. And that made such an impact on my life. And getting to hold circles for survivors and just make space for them to be seen and heard and understood was such a game changer. And it was like everything I had learned, one through like growing up and having those friends who like could see me through all of the, chaos of growing up, just not really having a childhood where it's like, I don't really have parents to get these answers from. But for some reason, I had really good friends who just had that unconditional kind of love that you hear about in like Rogerian theory. It's like, I'm going to sit here and listen to you. And you know what? I'm even going to give you some options to like brainstorm on and like you get to choose. I had good friends like that. And it's like, it's really cool. So it's like kind of learning from those past experiences with great friends and then all the really cool trainings I got through just working with survivors. Tiambe Wallace in the community, she came and did a lot of like reflective coaching support with us at Women's Shelter of Long Beach. And then I had her again at the last organization I was with. And I'd learned so much. And there's so many other Roshni Sharma. She's also an amazing leader who I brought a lot of cool folks into our 40-hour domestic violence trainings. And I was just learning and learning. So I just figured, yeah, I kind of want to take all these learnings, start my own business, and create these kind of spaces for my clients now. And that's
Mm.
how it got birthed. I had no idea I was going to do anything with astrology until one day I just thought, hey, I could use some self care. I'll do I'll just jump into a year-long program learning astrology because, nonprofit people, we love to jump into training programs, right? It's fun. We're always learning and doing self-care, but it really opened up something inside of me. So I
Mm.
went for it. And at the same time I was doing that, I had already jumped into a coaching program and where I was learning parts work. And then I realized that the parts work and the astrology were actually very aligned,
Mm.
interestingly enough.
Yeah,
And before I knew it, Polaris was like, oh, that's my North Star.
that's
That's,
really
yeah,
cool. And I'm actually not familiar. I should have looked up the term Polaris, but is that North Star? Is that what it's pointing to?
that's exactly what it's
Ah,
pointing to. Yeah.
okay, I love
So,
that.
yeah. And then I had no idea that it's actually more than one star, which I guess makes sense because it is the
Mm.
brightest star, but it's so bright that there's a couple other stars there making it extra bright. But it is the star that sailors followed and travelers, enslaved people who went and found their way, right?
Mm.
So now when I look at a chart, I'm really seeing when I was learning astrology and just learning on my own chart, it was really amazing to see like I could see all the past trauma in my chart and I could like see my North Star. I was like,
Mm.
this is incredible. And I could see all the parts in there too from like the IFS work. And I was like, this is deep. There's
Yeah.
something here.
It's
Yeah.
it's cool that you made those connections. So for people who aren't familiar, though I've talked about it on other podcast episodes, but IFS, internal family systems,
Yeah.
and that's really looking at the different parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know that's been something that's been compelling to both of us. What for you resonates about internal family systems?
I love that it's non-pathologizing. God, that's a big one for me.
Mhm.
And that's also what I love about Western astrology. Although if you watch like a lot of like little clips about astrology or you hear people talking about it without the depth, it is very pathologizing because you'll hear things like, you're an Aries. Oh my God. Right.
Right?
And it's like, oh no, there's so many, it's the warrior spirit. It's beautiful, right? There's so many beautiful things, but like internal family systems, there's and what you'll learn about Jungian stuff, there's the shadow sides. And what I love about it is that we all have it, right? We all have these parts. And so for IFS, it's like one. the fact that it's not pathologizing and that we all have these parts, I feel like it's very awesome to like start being more gentle with ourselves because it's not that person. It's like, it's all of us. And I feel like we can be more nice, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
when we can be more nice to ourselves, then we can be more kind to other people. And that's what I'm seeing with the astrology chart too, because you have the shadow sides of every single sign in our chart, because we all have all the signs, but they all have their shadows. And it's like, it's up to us how we choose to express these signs. But once we're aware of how they can be expressed, it gives us more choice. And that's the same
Mm-hmm.
thing with the IFS. Like once we get to know these parts of us, then it's like, oh, we have actually some agency of how we want to choose to respond. But when we don't really know them, they just take over. It's like,
Right.
what just happened? Why did I have this major reaction? Wait, let me pause here. Let's talk to that part a little bit. So I don't know. It feels so, they both feel very magical to me in that respect, where it's like we sit, pause, we get to know it, and then we get to move with a little bit more clarity.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah. When you help folks make the connection to their parts and astrology, or even for yourself, what is possible with that awareness? What do you see?
Everything becomes possible, right? Again, because when we're living in those polarities, it's like there's so many limits. It's like, again, going back to like human development, when you're at a certain age, everything is just black or white. It's this or that. And in the parts work, when you have a part taking over, it's like you just have this one part that's saying yes and this other part that's saying no. And you have to live in the black or the white. But when you're getting to know both parts and then you just start letting them kind of come together and you start speaking from them, like all this more becomes open. And
Mhm.
then that's where it's like life just becomes colorful. Like it's not just black and white anymore. So it's like, who knows? I don't even know what's possible for them. Like they don't know what's possible. It's like anything can become possible, which is where I think the magic comes alive. It's like,
Mhm.
who knows until you start doing that work, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah. What kind of magic have you seen come alive in your own life?
Oh my gosh. I was at a standstill for a long time, just with, and I think you know this, but with having to make hard decisions for myself with like family and work that no longer served me. And and it was very black and white. It's like I'm just gonna keep white knuckling through things and I'm just gonna do it and do it and do it until I can't anymore. And it was just, yeah. And then I was like, I don't have to. And then I think I thought that if I didn't do it, like I would just die. It was just very extreme. But I was like, okay, so what if I just didn't do things that didn't serve me anymore and just tried it on? And then I did, and it was hard, but it was like I didn't die. And actually, there is a very vibrant life kind of came up through all of that. And it was pretty incredible. So I think just like the image I'm getting is like the Fool card. It's like, the Fool takes risks and there's like that energy to the Fool and there's brightness, there's daylight. So that's always a good sign. And it's like you just trust your intuition. If something's been telling you to do something, it's like you can trust it. And you have what it has like the little white dog for some luck there. And you can try something new on. And if you fall, you can get back up. I'm how old? I'm 51 now. I've fallen. I know how to get back up now. It's like, it's okay. So I think just, getting to try new things on and of course, make your repairs when you need to make repairs and just learning all those things and not getting so stuck. If you do this, then it's a calamity. It's not, it doesn't have to be. So
Mhm.
just kind of those things, just all that like fluff stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it is learning. Like, I just hear that, like, oh, this is scary, like, so scary. I think I might die. And then it's like, actually, it's okay. And actually, there is color. And actually, I can live my life in a way that feels supportive, it feels alive, and I'm not just like tense moving through it the whole time.
And as you say that too, and I want to go and I want to give like all the parts its due respect because, of
Mm-hmm.
course, and I know you're so in line with this, we don't want to spiritually bypass anything. So when the
Mm-hmm.
grief hits, like I love being able to make space for that, right? And I want to honor that and I want to lean in on my people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because again, at 51 years, like I do have beautiful people in my life that I can lean in for anything, when there's joy, when there's grief. And so much beauty comes from those moments too. And I'm reminded of Inside Out. And
Mm-hmm.
I know what that was like the sweetest message is, yeah, don't exile grief. Like you need grief to come back to the joy.
Yeah, absolutely. And connecting with that. So there is, it's like the connection between joy and grief. And that sometimes in making those hard decisions, you didn't die, but there is grief, right? And
Sure.
so being able to be with that and honor it too. Absolutely. Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
With you. And like just, we've each had some training in parts work and each worked with it in different ways, but I've really been appreciating, we've been meeting a couple times a month and, going over some different exercises related to that. And it's just been very deep for me. So thank you too. I think you extended that as an offer and I was like, oh, that would be great. So you IFS is one of the things you've been learning about and practicing. You're also getting training around being a death doula, supporting people with end of life transitions. Can you share about that?
And I just want to kind of go back for a second and say thank you because I'm realizing a lot about my system practicing with you.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, and in like understanding my system, it also helps me understand my client systems as well. And I knew coming in because I've worked with IFS with my clients, or I have been working with them since finishing the coaching program. And I have had clients who have struggled with IFS from their past therapist. And I think it's interesting, what we've learned in the coaching program is oftentimes we'll have clients come to us with some of the same issues that we have. And that's why it's so important that we do our own work. Um, so one of my clients, really struggled with really going and digging deep into all their parts. And some of our first classes were mapping out our parts. And I realized, oh, I really struggled with that too. And that was another reason why I'm loving doing this with you because as I get to keep practicing and going deeper, I need a lot of time to process. And so I love getting that extra time with you, especially as someone I trust. it's really nice because oftentimes we're doing them with complete strangers. And it's
Mm-hmm.
great and it's good practice, but I love having the opportunity to do it, processing some of this with people I trust because I think it's great to have all the options, right? So
Mm-hmm.
thank you for that. But I'm also seeing how it's also great to have astrology as that tool as well, because when you're looking at your map of yourself, it's almost like you already have all your parts laid out for you. So for folks who don't want to, for it's kind of a struggle to really map out your parts cognitively like that, it's like, oh, my Mars is in Capricorn in the 10th house. Like that means something. And that's like a part. So that's kind of nice just to already have it out there and to start talking about what that means for a person or for
Mm-hmm.
them to reflect on it. So I just kind of wanted to bring that in. So again,
Yeah.
thank you for letting me kind of reflect on that as I do this work with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we go on to the death doula piece, you just kind of talked about how you weave those things together even more. And I'm wondering, what do you want people to, or I know we've talked about too, like, oh, I just want to share this with people. Like, I want it to be accessible to folks too. So it's like, what do you want people to know about parts work and even your approach to it in terms of blending in the astrology?
I want to share going back to like, because it's not pathologizing. There's nothing, I think no one wants to walk into the room with someone else saying like, this is what's wrong with you. Like from this like power over place. It's like, okay, well, I don't know. We're all raised in a culture where there's lots of things wrong. So if there wouldn't be anything wrong with us, that would be really weird, right? Where there's all this dysfunction going on. So let's just start with that. And so now we're all here with lots of different things going on, and let's naturalize it and let's let's start being kind to ourselves because when we are really trying to, and I think this is what I was really used to growing up, is like being really mean to ourselves. And this is how I heard everyone talk. We would be so mean and negative to ourselves, and we would hear everybody else be like that, that it was like, if you did have mental health challenges already, that was going to catastrophize them. And so it's like, well, that's not helpful. So stepping into a modality that felt like this can actually make my relationship to myself like really beautiful. And this is the first time I can actually have a relationship with myself and do, I guess, that inner child work, right? Because
Mhm.
I think that's really what it is. I've never done inner child work in therapy, but do you know, Christine, is that essentially what it is when you're doing IFS?
I think there's a part of IFS that connects back to that, definitely, because our parts often came about during childhood. Not all of them,
Yeah.
but that kind of, they came up as this way of protecting us or helping us navigate whatever systems we're in, whether it's our family or just the culture and
Yeah.
society that we live in. So I do think there's that connection for sure, especially when you get into the kind of more therapeutic pieces too around the exiles and how they formed. I also haven't done like formal inner child work. I'm not sure exactly what that entails, but I know that in getting to know some of those parts better, it gives this window into how they developed and often at like to be protective of that child, even if they don't express in ways that serve us now. It was that good intention, that protective intention.
Sure, sure. So it's like, okay, so now here's this opportunity to do IFS work. And so if you don't have the opportunity again to do that healing work with your caregivers, maybe they're deceased or maybe they're abusive for whatever reasons, you don't have the opportunity. Now you can tap into that place in yourself, that self, that part of you that can never be broken, can never be harmed, that's always there. And that part of you can go and can nurture your inner you, that inner child of you. And that's so magical and that's so special. And that there's so much healing in that. And any of us can do that. So this work is so powerful. And I want everyone to have access to it because one, it shouldn't just be for people who have a lot of money, right? This should be for everybody can
Mhm.
all access that. So that's why to me it's so important. And our mutual friend Joey, we bonded on this. And so she read No Bad Parts and then I read No Bad Parts. And then we're like, yeah, let's do some workshops on this. And so a summer later, we're putting out some workshops on it. And
Mhm.
right now she's doing some things. So, but I know as soon as she's done, we'll probably continue because we're both really passionate about getting this out to people, to the communities who need it.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. And I think about it too when you talk about like kindness to yourself and just the way that that can ripple out. I know you have values connected to social justice, equality, and I'm wondering to you, how do you see that connection between the inner work and what you want to see in the world?
For me, that healing work and what I want to see in the world for myself and for others is that we no longer believe those limits or constraints that people who maybe don't have the best intentions for us want us to believe. So we break free from those limiting beliefs and really step into our power. Uh,
Mm,
and yeah, really, really live the lives that we are meant to live, like unapologetically, in full force, whatever it looks like for us. Um, yeah, that seems what life, that's the gift I feel like for life. And I think, yeah, and I feel like that's kind of a great segue into like the death doula work because
mhm,
looking at being in a program where you're constantly reflecting on death, it's like for me personally, and I'm sure I'm not unique in this, but really makes you think about what's important right now. Like, how do I want to live my life right now? Because this breath is what is keeping me alive. It's what's connecting me to everything now. This moment is what I have right now. And it's everything. So how
mhm.
do I want to use it? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a really good reminder.
yeah. Yeah, I can imagine working with this regularly. It brings it so present for you, like you're saying. What drew you to death doula work and what are you enjoying about learning?
It's interesting. I was talking to my nephew about it, and he's like, you've been talking about this since you were living in Oceano, and I was living there when I was 21. You've been wanting to do this forever. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. It might be, I have a very Plutonian chart. So Pluto is all about death and rebirth and transformation. I've always been fascinated about death. And I think uh, lately, lately it's really been about, I want to really bring a lot of presence to my clients. And I know I have to do all my own work because I don't know what is going to be alive for my client in that moment, right? And if I don't do my own work around it, then I might lose that presence. I might project some stuff. I also know I want to do really deep work with them. I want to do depth work. So if they bring some deeper transitional, transformational stuff, I do want to be ready for it. And like I said, I wanted to do this for a long time. And I also am at that age as a Gen Xer where I do hear a lot of my friends having anticipatory grief over their parents right now. And a lot of them too are in, middle management, caring for their older parents, also caring for their younger children. And there is just so much going on that I feel like there is definitely a, a space there where coaching could be very supportive. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so I am hoping to be able to serve my fellow Gen Xers are people who could use this space, who are going through big transitions like this and who are really thinking about what's important now. And maybe I could use a coach to really navigate a loved one's transition right now. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. It's so helpful. Just speaking, I worked with someone who didn't call herself a death doula, but was a grief coach. She taught these workshops on grief, and I could never make the workshops, but I had connected with her because she used to work in a mortuary, actually. And she was part of a human library that I attended. So I was like, oh. But anyway, I went to her for grief coaching, anticipatory grief, and kind of like preparation. It was so supportive, so important in those moments. And like you said, I mean, I can just relate because I was carrying that like caregiving responsibilities for my daughter and then my mom who was out of state and trying to support her care. And I imagine, I know I will have those transitions in the future as well. So that's really important for folks to get support when they're like just trying to hold all the things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's one thing I'm learning in the program is like, well, one, I've already known this. We do not like to talk about that. We,
Mhm.
we will do everything to avoid it. And then when it happens, we're in crisis mode and we don't make decisions when we're in crisis mode. So that's a part of it for me that I would love to start talking about it through Death Cafe, its own organization. And I want to start bringing that into the community, just to bring a space where we just, take an hour, talk about whatever we want to talk about death and start normalizing it. Um, and oh, there was something I was going to say about the those. Oh, yeah, we don't talk about it. So we're making poor decisions. And so a friend was telling me recently that one of her friends his mother had cancer and, she was in another country. He's living here in the States. Every hour, he would talk to her at a certain hour during the night. And now that she's passed, when that hour comes, like he feels so lost. And I was just thinking about like how and she says, where she's from too, death is also very much not talked about. So again, it's like this crisis, like until it happens, then everyone's scrambling about what gets done. And now this person is really struggling with the grief. And it makes me think about just again, like how nice it would be to start preparing people way before it gets to that point to having these conversations. Um, like, yeah, how do I want to die? Like, I know and again, it's different for everyone, but I know I would love to have the opportunity to just get all the intimacy of my friends, get to have all the great talks and talk about like what it's going to be like afterwards. Like, just really get to talk it out. Cause I was thinking about if I was, let's say I'm talking to you the same hour every night. And then it's like, let's talk about what that's going to be like when I'm gone. Maybe we could co-create something that you do for that hour so that there's something there, right? So there's some healing that starts. But I was just thinking there's so many, like, I think beautiful things that if we are talking about it, that we could just start putting in there just to start the healing. So I don't know. Again, I think going back to your question of like, what could be possible? It's like, who knows anything, right? When we just start kind of doing this work.
Yeah,
And it's so,
absolutely.
yeah, and it's not easy work, but God, it's worth it work, right?
Yeah. And I'm just thinking as you're talking about how it's like makes people less alone too when you normalize grief, normalize conversations about loss, make it less like awkward or taboo too. Then there's more space for the fullness of humanity, and death is a huge part of that. And we're all going to experience multiple losses in our lifetime as well as our own death too.
And now I want to know like everyone's views and opinions. Like I want to know it all. And I just want to celebrate everyone's views and opinions of like what happens after death? Nothing? Oh, cool. Something? Oh, cool. Like what do you think? What
Uh-huh.
do you think? And it's just so I think it's such a fascinating topic. Because honestly, nobody knows because no one's come back to tell us.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
kind of
Right.
fun to think about.
Though there are always those stories of the people who died, and then I'm like, that's
Right.
interesting.
Right. And they,
Yes.
yeah, they
The
got to
way,
the elevator, but yeah, they didn't get
uh-huh.
fully there. So,
Right. The way they make sense of it. It's interesting. Yeah.
and it is fascinating because I have heard from in my program, she interviews a lot of people who work with death and from nurses and doctors, a lot of people in the medical field and just there's death doulas who have their own accounts and they will all say, from what I've seen working with people dying, I am a believer. That's all I'm saying. So
Yeah.
it's like, oh, fascinating.
That is interesting. Wow.
Yeah,
Well, I'm curious, like, who are the types of folks you want to work with? You did
great
talk about the
question.
folks who are like holding, multiple roles in terms of
Yeah.
a death doula. But for astro coaching, for any
Oh,
of your work, who are you calling in to work with you?
yeah. I'm calling in the folks who are really ready to do those deeper dives, to do that hard work. Because again, I get why people won't want to do hard work. It's hard work. If people are like, I'm not ready yet, and that's fine. This is going to be a space, though, where there's no judgments, right? And so you want to like look at some of the shadow stuff and be really honest with yourself and really, really reach that goals with all of it. With astrology, it's going to look at the darkness, which can be so beautiful because that's what can make the most wonderful transformations, right? And with IFS, yeah, sure, we're going to make the unconscious conscious. Well, we might want to say, no, that's not there. That's just there to protect you. And so if you're willing to like really do that harder work, then this is definitely a space for you. I think I do my best work, I've noticed, with people who've already done a lot of therapeutic work. I know I worked with a therapist who was like, I did astro coaching with her, and she was like, oh my God, this was better than my last 4 therapy sessions because it was so specific to me. And she's clearly, as a therapist, has done a lot of her own work. So there was just such a willingness to like do the deeper dives. So this work really works well for people who have or who are even in therapy and kind of doing stuff in collaboration. And what I tell people is like therapy is great for doing all that kind of work, from like doing deeper dives of like past and healing. And coaching's really great for like what goals are you working on and moving you from where you are to where you want to get to. So, yeah, I think deeper dives, wanting to do really transformational work and who are really into like, let's look at something holistic. Let's do, you want to mess around with some tarot? You want to bring something else into this? Is that a calling for you? Then I think this would be a really good setting.
Oh, that's awesome. Cool. I had this kind of like inspiration before the call, and then when you just mentioned that, like kind of messing around, I have these cards that Simone Soul had put together. They're like play date with my business, but I was like, I wonder if I should just draw one and see what comes up for Eydie. Is that okay for you? Interesting to you?
Yes, please.
Okay, cool. Some of them are very specific to like a question you have right now, but we'll just see what lands, if anything. Okay, so the question that comes up for you is, what if this works out non-linearly? That means I might dot.
What if this works out non-linear? That means I might. That means oh man. So that is so my ground cross question. And honestly, Christine, I'm pretty sure you also have a grand cross in your chart.
Oh, what is it?
A grand
A
cross.
grand cross?
Yeah. So that's when everything is squaring. So that means it's always calling focus to a place in your chart. So, and it's like career, no home, no personal relationships, no myself. And you have planets there that are always like wanting this attention. And you always have to, if you're giving it something here, something's calling you here. Now something's calling you here. And that's going to be the challenge and something for us to master how to bring the balance and always keeping that in balance. And I feel like it feels very nonlinear to me because you can't just move like this. You're always having to figure out the balance. And for me, the meaning I'm putting to it is like, I get to slow down a bit and get present and enjoy, enjoy, enjoy now. Right. So there's no, I guess, just letting go of trying to control. Right.
Oof.
Yeah. Let's just let that go, which, yeah, it can be hard, especially when starting a business. Be hard.
Mhm.
And yeah, just getting present with what's unfolding right now and giving it all the grace it deserves right now in this moment. I think that's going to be the gift for really embracing the nonlinear.
I love that. I'm glad that I went with that intuition and that landed for you, and it definitely resonating with me. I was doing my inner wise self love note this morning, and I did it to my hyper vigilant part. I wrote it not just to me, Christine, but specifically to that part that wants to control everything and keep it in place and keep it tidy. So that was really helpful, to just give myself some permission there too, to let go, to enjoy. I love what you said, enjoy this part, enjoy that part, slow down. It doesn't have to look one certain way. And that is like when you're starting a business, you can have all those parts come up that are like, it needs to look exactly like this, and it needs to go A, B, C. And that's just not where we're at. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's interesting because there's just 1,000 things to do when you start a business, like quite literally. It's like,
Right.
so there's so many things to do. Like, it's fine. Just do some in whatever order it comes, just keep working through it. And it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so for folks who are interested in doing the hard but transformative work with you, they can find
Yeah.
more about your work at polariscoaches.com, right?
PolarisCoaches.com. Yeah. I also have an Instagram page if they want to follow me there. I have a Facebook page, but I haven't been on it as much. So yeah, I would definitely check out the Instagram page. And yeah, I come get a chart from me. Look at your stuff. It's so fun and interesting. Yeah,
Yeah, it is. Having done a few sessions with you, I feel like there's so much richness there too that I am like continuing to revisit my chart and like deepen my understanding over time. And so I appreciate that. And like you were saying earlier too, that difference between a reading and coaching, like that coaching is really helping people make sense of it for themselves too.
absolutely. Yeah. And again, and the readings again are very similar. So I guess I should state this because astrology is still there's so many different types of astrology in the world, and I don't do predictive astrology. So I should name that. I'm really going off of the archetypal energy. So I'm going to share with you what I'm seeing is the energy of your charts. And then also, as the planets are transiting, what that energy is saying right now. And often, and it's interestingly enough, people usually come to me when they have a Pluto transit, and Pluto's one of the most intense energies. And I think that's fascinating. That's when people usually come to me. So that's saying something. But I'm never gonna, again, as a coach, we don't give advice and we don't tell you what to do. And the same is going to be true as your astro coach. I'm going to share with you what I'm seeing energetically, and I'm going to share how that energy can be supportive, or where if you're telling me something about the shadow side, I'm going to point that out to you, how that energy is showing up for you. And again, not to shame you, because trust me, I've played out shadow sides in my chart a lot. We're human. We do this. But again, just to what did my last IFS teacher say? Like, discovery is recovery, right? And so we're just discovering about ourselves so that we can recover. So yeah, the more we understand the energies at work, or the more we understand the parts that are in us and making these relationships, the more we can actually start having some agency. And for self, we're moving with more self energy, or we're moving with more, it's funny because I'm like, what is the self of the chart, Christine? I was thinking about that.
Mm.
And at first I was like, I'm like, the self can't be the sun. The sun's our vitality. And the reason I'm like, it can't be the sun is because the sun has a shadow. the sun can get very egotistical. You get too close and you can burn, if you have too much sun,
Mm-hmm.
but the sun is beautiful. All the signs are beautiful. Or all the planet, all the archetypes. And so since self is like, there's not that shadow side. It's just the self has courage and clarity. It feels so grounded and lovely. Then I'm like, maybe self is like the space outside of all the planets, just holding, the whole system together. That's lovely, right?
Yeah.
And then I was thinking, or maybe the self is like once we balance out like our chart, because it's always, you're working with the aspects. So you're working with your planets are always talking to each other, but they're making aspects that are sometimes harmonious, but sometimes challenging. So if you have Saturn and Pluto making a lot of really challenging aspects, you're having archetypal energies that are, some are ruling over depression, some kind of rule over, Pluto's known for like a lot of kind of addictions, kind of things that pop up with some of these harder, more challenging archetypes. But once we start balancing them and acknowledging how they can transform us and pulling the wisdom out, then I'm like, well, maybe that's the self when we start integrating, right? So experiencing them, pulling the wisdom, maybe the integration of them is the self. So, I've just been
Mm-hmm.
playing around with that
Yeah.
idea. It's just
Oh, that's
been,
so interesting. Yeah,
yeah,
that is. I was thinking like you kind of in the second one, it's kind of like it's the universe that holds everything. But I think it's so interesting the way that you're making sense of it and considering the
yeah,
different angles. Yeah.
yeah. So, and I think I was just sharing how, yeah, astrology, people practice it very differently. So I do want to share, yeah, I don't practice it in a predictive way. Again, I just practice it in a way that helps us understand what's going on with ourselves,
Mm,
make sense of ourselves in a way that's going to support us and showing up in the world the way we want to show.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, there's a lot going on in the world. How are you staying sane and having fun these days?
Yeah. Yeah. Right now I am house sitting. I have two kitties and a 14-year-old puppy I get to take care of. And that's been
Aw.
really sweet. The kitties were outside strays that she rescued, and thank goodness, because there's a lot of coyotes here. And sometimes they'll jump on the bed and be with me, but not often. So I get all excited and
It's
then I'll
always
pet them too
special
much.
when the cat pays
So
attention to you.
special. Yes. And it's hilarious because there's this thing where it's like the cats are boys and the little puppy, she's right here. She's the girl. And she always wants my attention. So, and of course the cats could care less. So when I'm
Yes.
petting them, the dog's looking at me like, why are you bothering? I'm here. Why are you giving them any attention when all I want to do is love you and you're just giving them attention? I'm like, I'm so sorry. I know
Yes.
the cat doesn't care about me at all. Let me go back to you, you cutie. So yeah, I'm here and I get to do that. And that's been an honor being with them. And yeah, just having really sweet connections with the people I love in my life. That's been nice. And interestingly enough, the death doula program is
Yep.
really fun for me. I get giddy talking about death. It's the weirdest thing. So maybe this really is a calling.
Yeah. It
'Cause,
sounds like it.
yeah, because it's like I'm talking to people who also are in love with talking about this because no, it's hard to find. So it's kind of keeping me sane because again, it's reminding me of what's really important.
Mm,
It's a good place to be.
yeah. Awesome. And as we begin to wrap up our conversation, I am curious what leadership means to you in this moment.
Yeah. What does leadership mean to me? I'm really liking the 8 C's for this question. And when I first, I'll also bring in like shared power, because,
Mm.
starting in the nonprofit space, we talked about that a lot. We don't want to do power over models, we want to do shared power. And
Mm.
so a little bit of that well, a lot of that with the 8 C's, I think is a really beautiful way to lead. And I don't know if I can name all the 8 C's. Let's see. There's courage, there's clarity, creativity, there is compassion. You might have to help me, Christine.
Confidence,
Confidence.
calm.
Um,
How many do we have? Six?
thanks.
Let's see. Connectedness.
Oh, yeah.
Did you say that one? Um, Creativity. Did you say that one?
I don't know.
I'll go back through and listen, see if we got all of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. I love that everyone has their own special way of leading. You know? Some people lead with inspiration, some people lead through their groundedness, some people lead with their intuition. There's just all these different ways. And I love watching how everyone has their own special way.
Yeah, I appreciate that. There's no one way to lead. And definitely what you called in about being intentional. How do we want to show up as leaders? And those 8 C's of self leadership can be really helpful too in thinking about that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else you want to share as we wrap up the conversation?
Just want to thank you for showing up as you always do. I appreciate you. And I was just so happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm really excited for folks to get to hear this conversation and to learn more about you and your work and how you're thinking about things.
Thank you, Christine.
Thanks again to Eydie for the conversation. And thanks to those of you who are listening along and who tuned in. I just got so much out of the conversation, and listening back to it as I was editing, I was really struck by both the sweetness that Eydie carries as well as the groundedness and knowledge that she pulls in from all of these different aspects of her work, of her experience, and of her interests. So definitely do connect with her. I have all the links to her website, her Instagram and Facebook are in the show notes. And I know she's somebody who would love to connect as well. So if there's something that you heard that really sparked interest in you, or you're interested in working with her, reach out. I encourage you to do that. And of course, if you would like to get more of the Resourced and Resourceful Leadership podcast and you haven't already subscribed or followed the show, please do that wherever you get your podcasts. We're also on YouTube. And please leave a 5-star review, maybe a review with some words, sharing something that you liked about the show, and tell some other folks about it as well, please. As always, there's a link to SpeakPipe in the show notes, so you can leave me a message about anything that stood out to you or any other topics you'd like me to cover in future episodes. You can also contact me in a number of different ways, and those are in the show notes as well. Thanks again for listening in, and take good care. By the way, I guess this is my PS for the episode. I went back and looked at the 8 C's of self-leadership that we went through, and the one that we left out was courage. But I do have to say, I think a lot of courage was present in this episode and in the way Eydie demonstrated self-leadership.